Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting material you sent over focusing on U.S. President Donald Trump's big announcement about tariffs.
That's right, on imports from, well, pretty much everywhere.
Exactly. So our mission today is to kind of unpack the potential economic impacts, the good, the bad, and just get a handle on the main arguments here.
We're diving into the pasted text provided, which lays out the announcement and some early reactions. Let's get straight into it.
Okay. So the main thrust, the headline here, it's pretty clear. These tariffs, right? A baseline 10% on almost everyone, but maybe jumping way higher, like 50% for certain countries.
Yeah.
And the stated reason is boosting the U.S. economy, protecting American jobs. That's the core message, isn't it?
It really is. The thinking behind it basically is if imports cost more, then American-made stuff looks cheaper by comparison.
Makes sense.
So the hope is people buy more local goods, which means more production and, ultimately more jobs here in the States.
But the text you shared also throws up some serious warnings. It talks about potential harm to the whole global economy.
Right.
And maybe more directly for people, the chance of higher prices for consumers everywhere, including here.
Definitely. That's the tension. You try to help one area, but it ripples out.
So while you're trying to shield, say, U.S. steel companies, the source material we have points out these wider effects. Like it suggests everyday things, maybe imported fruit or electronics, could suddenly cost 10% more.
Yeah, think about a $300 phone. Suddenly it's $330.
Yeah.
That's noticeable.
Absolutely. And then there's the other big risk mentioned, retaliation. What if other countries just hit back?
Exactly. They could impose their own tariffs on American goods going out, which hurts U.S. exporters. So it cuts both ways.
So, okay, the goal might be helping that U.S. steel producer, like we said.
Right.
But the same tariff could hike up costs for, I don't know, an American car company using that imported steel.
Precisely. Which could then mean higher car prices for us.
Yeah.
Well, it's not simple. Yeah. A complex web.
It really is. And it's interesting, the pasted text also brings up other ideas, alternative strategies.
It does. It mentions things like targeted subsidies, giving direct help to specific industries.
Instead of a broad tariff.
Right. Or negotiating new trade deals, different tools to maybe boost U.S. competitiveness without perhaps these widespread negative effects that tariffs might bring.
Which does raise that question. Are these big sweeping tariffs the sharpest tool for the job?
It's a fair question based on the material.
Okay, so for everyone listening, let's boil it down. Key takeaways. First, you have the stated goal, give the U.S. economy a boost, protect jobs. That's the driver.
Clear motivation.
But second, the material clearly warns about big risks. Higher prices for consumers, potential damage to the global economy, retaliation, a lot of possible downsides.
Yeah, and I think what really comes through is the sheer complexity. There's no easy yes or no on whether this works out neatly.
Right.
The pasted text shows there are different views on the best way to support industries, especially now when everything's so interconnected globally.
And it reminds us tariffs aren't the only game in town. Other policies exist.
Exactly. Subsidies, trade agreements, other options are mentioned.
So wrapping up then, we've looked at the intended upside of these tariffs boosting the U.S. economy, job protection.
Yep.
And balanced that against the potential downside, higher costs, slower growth, plus these alternative strategies that might exist.
And maybe a final thought to leave folks with, thinking bigger picture.
Yeah.
It really makes you consider the long-term effectiveness, and maybe the unintended side effects of using broad protectionist policies like this in such a, well, deeply interconnected world economy. How does that play out down the line?